Welcome to the Pinkbike podcast. We've got a special edition today. I'm Mike Kasmer. I'm joined by Brian Park. We also have Dylan Howes and Dave Knauf. They're from Trek, and they're here to talk about the brand new Fuel EX and some other versions of the Fuel. The multimodal platform. That sounds fancy, but it's basically one bike that you can turn into different other bikes. And we're going to chat with them about how this thing came to be, how it's different from previous Fuel EXs, and kind of all the things you can do with it, what it takes to make multiple bikes out of one bike. Welcome to the podcast.
Let's start with who you guys are and what you do at Trek. Dylan, what's your background and what's your role?
I am one of the senior mountain bike engineers here at Trek. I've been here a good long while. Dave and I both have.
How long?
I hit 21 years this year.
Oh, wow.
It's a good long while. That qualifies.
So I've managed to have my hand in every Fuel EX we've ever done in some form.
What's the best and the worst bike project you've ever worked on in that 21 years? Or let's go most and least favorite.
Okay. Favorite is a tie for me, and they're still the two I love working on the most, and that would be Fuels and Sessions. Least favorite. There've been a couple stinkers over the years. There's
put you on the spot right off the bat.
I'll pick on the poor Fisher guys. The fat possum was not my favorite.
Yeah. I'm glad we're kind of past those days a little bit.
Yeah.
They exist. Fat bikes exist for that person and you can buy them and they're great, but now they're kind of realize they're not for everybody, which is a good thing, I think.
Well, the Fat Possum wasn't even a fat bike. It was this old single pivot full suspension bike.
I was like in the sugar days.
2006 Gary Fisher Fat Possum.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking crap on fat bikes already and that wasn't even one.
Oh man, you can buy one that was signed by Gary Fisher. It's for sale right now.
Yeah.
I don't think we made too many of those, so that might be worth something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the bike does look familiar now. I remember those. All right.
And over to Dave.
Yeah.
I'm Dave Knauf, full suspension product manager for Trek, and not too far off of Dylan. I've been here for 20 years this year, and have my hands in most of the full suspension bikes, and most of the fuels along the way, similar to Dylan. So.
What does a product manager do?
A lot of different things. I think my primary role is really trying to work with the team and understand the customer, understand how we can develop the product to best suit the rider needs. I think, as we'll talk about in this platform, we're always trying to understand how to make the bike do more without compromise. And I'm super excited to talk about this new fuel and that aspect of it.
I think we got to give you a hard question too.
Okay.
What's a good one, Kaz?
It's almost the same one though. I mean, it's been the same thing. What's your favorite project you've worked on in the last 20 years and then least favorite?
Wow. I don't know. There's not a lot of bad projects. I mean, you learn something from everyone. That's the fun part. And I think, it's hard to look away from the fuel platform and kind of look back through its history and, where it's been and where it is now. And, every time we make that fuel, right, and decide to go to market with it, it's like, wow, this is the best bike ever. What are we going to do next? And that's the coolest part about doing this for 20 years is that we always continue to evolve the product and make it better, and it's a significant difference every time. So
softball answer.
We'll get you going.
Yeah. Well,
later we'll dig deeper.
What's a part that speccing caused a huge headache for you? Product managers do a lot of, you're responsible for the spec of a lot of bikes. Yeah. And sometimes things don't go to plan.
I mean, there's so many different curveballs there, right? I mean, you talk about pandemic times, you talk about tariff times. There's always challenges in terms of spec. I mean, we have partnerships with a lot of different vendors, so I mean, there's a solution somewhere, but it's just keeping on your toes and I think again, understanding the customer and what's the priority for them and not compromising that is what we focus on.
I guess we should, now that we've got those out of the way, we'll get into deeper questions. So let's go back to the Fuel X that we're here to talk about, the new Fuel X that by the time people listen to this, it is launched, it's official. What's the main takeaway of this bike? Like, how is it positioned and how is it different from the previous one? Let's just start with the very basics.
I mean, this is positioned as our ultimate, most versatile trail platform. So the Fuel customer rides a lot of different terrain and has a lot of different demands on the bike. And we try to have this bike cover all ends of the spectrum as much as possible. So you're focused on climbing, you're focused on descending, you're focused on the capability of that bike. Like, this bike can do it all.
Yeah, and so the stock configuration, it still has the previous version, same travel, 145 rear travel with a 150 fork, dual 29-inch wheels. That's kind of like the base. That's the heart of this bike. But there's some secret menu items, and not even secret menu items, just extra menu items that allows people to transform this into what historically would probably be called the Remedy, right? You know, the Remedy name went away, but now you can make this a longer travel. You can bump up the travel to a mixed wheel 150 bike, even all the way to 160. We'll get into that in a little bit. But what was the direction? What made you take that direction of having a bike that can actually be, call it different bikes rather than just doing more geometry adjustments? You know, the current Fuel X had a lot of geometry adjustments, but not as much with this, where it's travel adjustments and kind of actually creating what's going to ride like a different bike. What was the decision process behind that?
I'll let Dylan jump into the technicalities there, but I mean, obviously, when we're looking at all the different customers and all the different use cases, way people are riding the bikes and what they're demanding of them, I mean, there's compromises you can make, right, to get those bikes to do certain things that kind of work for the rider, but there's definitely more optimal ways to go about it. And I think that's where we kind of drilled in here and looked at how we could do those changes without compromise.
Can we just back up, and for the people listening who maybe haven't read the full article, which you should go do, but what are the main configurations of this bike?
Yeah, so we have a Fuel EX, right? So that's the bike that is most similar to the previous generation. So that's a full 2.9er, 150, 145 rear travel. Then we'll have an MX variant that is.
And you're calling that, Fuel. You're not calling that Fuel EX MX. It's Fuel MX.
Yep. Yeah. And so as you may have seen online, that bike is actually configured with a different link and lower shock mount. So in changing those hardware pieces and a longer travel fork. So that bike is a 160, 150 and is designed specifically to work with a 27.5 rear wheel. So your mullet setup. And then we'll have a Fuel LX setup that's designed with a 170 fork and a 170 fork, a 65 stroke rear shock that allows that bike to be essentially a previous generation slash, right? So Mike mentioned the Remedy, right? So in some ways we're bringing that bike back, and then also previous generation slash as well.
So like non-high pivot slash.
Correct. Yeah.
Medium high pivot slash. Yeah.
Was there a meeting where you said, I'm just trying to picture the development process of these, where like you could either do 3 separate bikes, someone could be in charge of the new Remedy, someone's in charge of the new old slash, and then this, or at what point did you realize, hey, we can just use one frame and make it as adaptable and hopefully work as well for all these configurations? Was that a conscious decision? Like, we've got the solution, or how did that evolve basically?
Yeah, that evolved through the R&D. I think really where it started for us is we're always trying to give the customer more. You're also trying to keep things a little bit simple, both for the customer and for manufacturing. How can you do more with fewer things? But one of the starting goals for us was there were a handful of us that missed the remedy. We wanted a remedy back. And we were just playing around one day going, well, if you just did this and that, you could change this. You could use the same frame and the same swing arm, or same frame, same chain stays. Oh, if you did that, it'd be the same seat stays as well. And so you start playing with those center lines, just laying it out. And that's really why the MX bike is a 150 rear, 160 front. Because setting that up as a remedy, and if we were to revive the remedy and redesign it today, it'd probably be a mullet bike. And so it was just kind of configuring that in there with the Fuel EX. And then pretty soon after that, you start going, oh, well, if we did this, we could kind of make it into the old Slash, which for us had become a little bit nichey. The new Slash is really good at what it does. But there were people that, for whatever reason, you don't always want a high pivot. Different terrain, different riding styles, just different desires for the bike.
Kaz is itching to use the word all mountain.
Well, yeah, it's kind of. I think it's just almost a classic enduro bike what you created with the Fuel LX. You know, if you're looking at even what this year in particular, where they've changed the course a little bit, people are starting to just downsize it slightly in travel, but you still need something capable. So I see where there is a need or a demand, at least for a bike that doesn't have a high pivot, but is still in that kind of like smash through things and go fast category.
Yeah. And that was definitely a thought in this, because the enduro riders were asking for different things, and there were times the high pivot Slash was exactly what they wanted. I think if eagle-eyed people noticed, there were a couple times that Fuel EXs got raced at certain enduros, depending on the track, and they had custom pieces in there to inch the travel up just a little bit. So part of that Slash idea was like, okay, well, now we can give the team two bikes. And it evolved into that of how many more options can we add. It got to a funny point where at one point it was up to 6 different things we could add by different pieces. It became a joke of like, oh, well, how many did you add this week?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying, even on this bike, there are some almost features that were removed from the previous one, but others were added. And kind of like the reach adjust headset that was on the angle set, the head angle adjusting headset potential. That's no longer on either bike, right? On the carbon or the aluminum?
No, it is.
It is.
What we did is we simply changed that. Last time it was a ZS56 lower with that oval upper cup. Now we've got a ZS56 lower and a ZS49 upper. And so we've still got cups in there. It's just we moved from a Trek proprietary thing to a industry-wide standard. Now, there's a number of people making those. There's even people making angle adjust ones in that standard. So it was really just about giving the customer more choice on what headset do you want to run.
Yeah, so but we still have kind of proprietary.
Yeah, but we still have those cups. We've used that same design in the session since 2018 now. So we just adapted that to this bike.
Yeah, where did the design elements of this bike, did you pull? I noticed, I was looking at some of the leverage ratio charts, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but it looked like almost the attempt was to mimic what you had found on the Fuel EXE. Like the new leverage ratio looks a lot like the previous e-bike almost. Was there were any elements pulled more from, say, the Session or from the e-bike to create this bike? Was there anything outside influence saying, hey, this worked really well? Was that the case, or do you just kind of go from the previous Fuel?
We definitely pulled from Fuel EX and EXE. We pulled from, as I said, the Remedy. If you look at the 160 version, the LX version, that's basically pulled straight from the previous gen Slash. So we took all those things. There were minor changes we made to just massage the main pivot point location a little bit. Pulled the leverage rate kind of in between the previous EXE and the EX, just taking little bits of the best from both. One thing we did last time was that the EXE and the EX influenced each other, and because it's all in the mountain bike group, we're working together on those, but they still evolved quite a bit differently. This time, the Fuel and the Fuel Plus, as we're switching names to, and the two of us who were the main engineers on that sat right next to each other. We were there sharing parts. It's the same rocker links, it's the same shock mount, exact same seat stays. Everything was much more shared, and so that did help influence each other, just kind of pulling the best from both.
That's a lot of things to satisfy with, when you do a rocker link, and especially it sounds like the mandate at the start of this project wasn't create 3 new bikes,
no.
which is actually 6 new bikes. It sounds like the mandate was create a new bike and a new e-bike, and then it evolved into like, oh, I think we can do this. Let's go. How we've seen companies do this before. Some of them successfully, some of them not, and often when it hasn't been successful, it's when people haven't been able to manage the compromises that are inherent with using the same front triangle or other parts that are shared, and try and have things be too many things. So how did you avoid that?
I think there it's really about which compromises are you going to pick, and we compromise every day. Engineering, designing stuff, every bike designer and engineer does. It's about picking which compromises. In this case, things like leverage rate were not going to be a compromise. But what you get for that is, well, now we have double the amount of lower shock mounts. We have three different rocker links. So there's a little bit of complexity and compromise put back in that. But because we weren't willing to compromise on leverage rate and ride quality. The geometry, in this case, it was the kind of thing that if we were designing something like a new Slash, you might pick a slightly different reach, or start with just a slightly steeper seat tube angle. But one of the things on this bike is when you're laying it out, going, okay, we're going to get all 3. You can push it up a little bit steeper on the Fuel EX version, and if somebody needs to, you can run your saddle further back now because it got too steep, or the other way with the Slash. So you kind of find that good balance, say, between those two. I think in the development, we certainly did it. The R&D didn't set out to build 3 bikes. Mm-hmm. It was just, well, can we build a Fuel and a Remedy in one bike? And then that turned into 2 to 3 to 4. And at some point, it's when you're getting to 4, it's like, oh, okay, hold on, let's rein this back in a little bit.
A lot of companies that have gone down this road before have done it out of necessity because they were smaller players. Trek is not a smaller player. Trek doesn't have to struggle to hit minimum order quantities from frame factories or anything like that. So I was quite surprised when Kaz told me that this was the project and this is what you guys were working on. I guess the question a little bit is why not just do a separate Remedy project?
I think one of the pieces that we find talking to customers is they don't really know, or if they know now, they're questioning the other options, and opening up that opportunity to the rider with less compromise for them, right? In terms of buying a whole new bike, right? So they can buy it as they see fit for now, and have that opportunity to easily swap it over to a mullet bike without a complete new bike. It's a huge opportunity, and it's something we hear more and more of, right? Like people questioning how they're going to ride the bike, or they're going to go on a trip and want this different format of their bike, right? And opening that up was a huge opportunity.
So you see both people who change their bike for a trip specific or a season specific thing, but do you see that more than you see people just buying a bike and then dialing it in and having the opportunity to dial it in as their riding evolves?
I think it's giving the people to do that, to have that one bike that serves different needs. We've took part of that idea from our road crew. Those guys sell a lot of gravel bikes, and we see those customers buying an expensive gravel bike and then a second expensive set of wheels, one set up road, one set up knobby, and they switch back and forth. I don't think we expect somebody to switch back and forth that often. But if you live in one place where a 140, 150 bike is your perfect bike for every day, and once a year you go to bike park, Whistler, take a big trip somewhere with a different fork and different tires, suddenly I've got a slash for that one big trip. So I think that's part of the idea. It's also partly just, well, we had a Fuel EX that was customizable by geometry, by angles. This is just taking it one step further and going, well, you can customize travel too, even further than you could. And you can customize wheel size. If you want the mixed wheel, auto riders like that, love that. I think riders who do tend to know they do. And that's part of something we were trying to avoid is certain customers are like, well, do I want a Remedy? Do I want a Fuel EX? Which ones? What's the benefit? This one, you get both. You can try them both even. But most people who want that know. And so on the previous Fuel EX, previous bikes we've done, it's always been, well, put it in minnow high, put a slightly longer fork on, we recommend it. And you get pretty close to that geometry. With this one, with doing new links, we could get that geometry exactly where we want it with the mixed wheel size and not compromise on leverage rate. So you can say, okay, this has now got the right leverage rate for this type of bike. Not just a travel increase, but a suspension characteristic adjustment to fit that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to touch a little bit on geometry itself, because that's something that's obviously across the board has evolved over the last 10 years pretty dramatically. And say for a time, Trek was on the more conservative side of things, but then there was a period, I can't exactly pinpoint the timeline, but then all of a sudden Trek caught up and was fully modern. It was still a while ago. Like, you guys have been in, I would have called the modern camp for a good amount of time. But the biggest change I noticed with this bike is stack heights have increased a fair bit. That was kind of like the last remaining one of the last remaining pieces of the puzzle, where historically the head tube lengths of the Trek bikes were fairly, short. And so customers that wanted that taller front end had to run higher rise bars, that type of thing. How did that come about? And was that how does that decision get made where, hey, we're going to really change a pretty key part of the frame to be this way?
I think we just looked at those taller riders, took some of that feedback more seriously, looked at the trends. The large, the XL and the double XL grew significantly in stack height from what we've had. The large grew a bit. I think part of that was just we all started riding just a little differently, and a bunch of us were going, oh, I want more spacers under my stem. I want higher rise bars. Oh, well, actually, this feels great. So I think a lot of it is just evolution in both riding styles and studying those fits a little bit better.
It wasn't, you guys didn't have that on like the whiteboard on day one of like, we're going to have a stack task force and have to figure out it's the key, whatever. Like,
I think it's a pretty clear parameter for this for this generation, right? Like that's something we've been watching and learning, with the previous generation and seeing how people had their bikes configured, like Dylan said, looking at the spacer stack, watching people switch to higher and higher rise bars, right? Like at some point you can't keep going to higher rise bars, so we got to compensate in the frame.
Yeah, no, I'll go on record. I appreciate it. I do like the higher stack, especially on steeper terrain. That the whole front end,
For sure,
in general, to make a difference. It is neat to see that kind of catch on across the board. I guess that kind of brings us to chainstay length. That's always a debate. There's vocal, people that want longest chainstays possible, size specific, and then with Trek's suspension layout, that ABP I assume makes it pretty tricky. You couldn't, almost impossible to make an adjustable chainstay feature. That'd be pretty hard to accomplish. Not that you couldn't, but it'd be at the different part of the chainstay probably. So was that ever a consideration? Did you ever think, hey, could we do adjustable chainstays, or you just kind of stick with these do have size? The chainstay length does change depending on size. So is that the path you decided? Basically, my question is there a bike like this out there that has adjustable chainstays somewhere in the development process?
Yeah, we've tried that a number of different ways to get adjustable. It's certainly not impossible. Again, it's one of those compromises. Well, we can get it, but with this design, it might add weight. One of the things we found is we've tried a bunch of things. With the ABP, to do that, you end up needing to make two adjustments. Obviously, it's chainstay and seat stay, or however you do it. We've tried it a number of different ways. But you still end up with 2 points you have to adjust. And so that opens up this can of worms of like, well, if somebody just adjusts one, you can end up with something you didn't intend, doesn't work right, won't work. And so for now, we've stuck with the way we've been doing it on several bikes now. So we've got a single actual pair of chainstays and seat stays, and then we allow the bottom bracket to move relative to everything else. So it does ultimately change the kinematics very slightly from size to size. Kind of one of those things of like, well, it's almost just lucky that it worked out to be appropriate for each of those sizes, the way it adjusts that. So,
yeah, I mean, at least you folks talk about it that way. A lot of brands that have size-specific chainstays act like they've produced, 8 new carbon molds instead of move the BB around a little bit. And it's interesting that it's a weight consideration to keep that, to not make it adjustable. How important is weight? 'Cause you're building it as a Fuel EX, but it still has to satisfy these two bigger platforms now that you're once you've decided to open up its sort of range. What was the battle on weight like?
the main battle was to not increase weight.
Mm-hmm.
The goal was actually to reduce weight. We're always, again, compromise here. We want more strength for the bike, more durability. But at some point, you can't just keep adding to it because the bikes get heavy. An enduro type bike, weight still matters. It's still a consideration, and it's still something you can feel on the bike. So the goal was to reduce weight.
And how heavy is it? Like, how heavy is the frame?
I'll have to get back on the number because I can't remember the exact numbers. But what I can say is we set out a goal of about 300 grams lighter than the previous frame set. And we did manage to come real close to that.
Oh, wow. So it's significantly lighter than the last Fuel EX. 300 grams out of the frame is huge. And you've increased the capability or the potential for capability with the bigger, like more travel and etc. Is that scary for you guys? Having people use these lighter bikes as full enduro bikes.
You just buy the aluminum one, and then it's not as light.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
I don't think it's scary. It's challenging. But ultimately, it has to survive all the lab tests. And in this case, we actually bumped those requirements up a step. So some of these
because of the like more aggressive versions of the bike.
The more aggressive versions, the shared parts with the ebike platform, because those naturally have higher requirements. But basically those two things:
Cool.
the more aggressive nature, the e-bike compatibility with shared parts. So once you're comfortably passing those tests, you feel pretty comfortable about it. Those tests have been developed over many years. We've seen a lot of factors. We've adjusted them for downhill athletes, C3 athletes before. You always learn something from there, and so you start going, okay, if we can hit this, we know it's safe. So,
what's the maximum fork travel it's approved for?
170. So,
Okay.
And because forks are different, really, what we should say is it's a 587 millimeter axle to race.
Right. Yeah. Which
So,
in most cases ends up being 170.
Yeah. So like a Zeb 38, something like that.
Yep. Yeah. I guess we've made it this far. Maybe we should talk about the different configurations and kind of the almost not quite, but secret menu items. So what people can do that you expect them to do, but not everyone's going to do. Even like personally, I've got that. Been testing the LX version, and it's set up with mixed wheels, which isn't kind of how it's advertised. You basically have in the three platforms, you display it as the dual 29-inch setup, but you can go mixed wheels.
So, Kaz, you've got the longer fork, you've got the longer stroke shock, and then you have the mixed wheel.
Lower link. You just swap out the lower link.
Okay.
So, it showed up with dual 29-inch wheels. I wrote it, and then I tend to prefer, for longer travel bikes, mixed wheels. So I was like, well, I can just put this mixed wheel link on here, put a smaller rear wheel, and then there you go. It's adapted. As you're selling bikes, basically, do you think that trying to keep track of all these bikes and parts is going to be really tricky? from a shop sales standpoint, the complete bike and having people switch things around. I guess how do you deal with that, or how do you forecast and plan for, we're going to sell this many things, and some people might switch to that? That seems so challenging.
The engineers are like, not my problem.
No, again, I guess not. You made a cool bike that can be adapted, which is sweet, and then you just hand it off. But trying to explain to a shop, well, you might want to keep some 27.5 rear wheels in stock, or how do you kind of help maybe alleviate concerns of a shop that's like, this is so many options, we're overwhelmed, we don't know what to do.
Totally. Yeah, that was one of the key parts of, as this evolved, and one of the strengths that we have at Trek is our custom program, P1. And so as you've seen, this platform is launched with a new P1 MTB program, and so you can get the bike configured exactly as you wish through that program. And so that allows retailers to bring in a bike stock that they see fit for their region, or a customer to order it specific to their needs. And whether you want to order the MX and then put a 170 fork and 65 stroke shock on like Mike did, or you want a RockShox fork versus a Fox fork, you can make all those decisions and get the bike configured the way you wish.
Kaz, when you were describing that as like a challenge for bike shops, I almost feel like it might be an advantage for bike shops, because it gives them you can sell a single bike to a wider range of customers, and stocking an extra couple of MX links and selling some extra 27.5 wheels, which have a much higher margin than a complete bike. It might actually make things easier for shops.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways for sure. I mean, there's customers, that also realize that added cost, right, of changing things after the fact. And so configurator program that will be less expensive for the customer.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I do think that's what we're seeing. There is a growing segment of customers that want that kind of custom bike, but they don't necessarily want to just start with the frame and do it all for themselves at home, but they don't want a totally off the shelf bike either. So that's a neat feature. I guess for you, maybe you, Dave, what's your fuel setup like?
So my fuel
EX.
is set up stock EX 29, or it's set up with the EX link with a 160 fork. Still the 60 stroke shock is the way I like to ride that fuel. But my Fuel Plus is set up like you have your fuel configured right now with MX Link long travel 170 fork with a 65 stroke shock.
How about you, Dylan? Do you have one kicking around too?
Yeah. I run my EX 145, 150. It's basically stock EX. But I have become a fan of putting in the -1 cup. I like that feel. The Plus bike, I'm running 145 rear, 160 front.
And still dual 29?
Still dual 29, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I like the feel of the dual 29. My cohort Matt Yerke, he's the one doing the Plus bike right next to me there. He's all in on MX. He loves that feel. Neither of us are wrong.
For people listening, in this context, Plus does not mean a Plus tire bike. It means a
Good call,
e-bike.
Brian. Yeah.
E-bike.
Yes,
Exactly.
that is correct. We call all our e-bikes Plus now.
Do you guys still have any Plus tire bikes in the lineup?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
They bring back
It's
the
definitely
stash.
faded out.
True.
That stash is-
We still have the
Stash is so
Farley,
fun.
the true fat bike, but
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
not Plus.
Talking more about, I guess, bikes and personalization and that type of thing. We've seen a push in the last few years where things like O chains and chain dampers and that have kind of become more present in people's minds. Did you do an experimentation with that, or any considerations of even speccing that? We've had some, they're more available, there's different options. Was that a consideration, or?
We've experimented with those quite a lot, and there's a bunch of us here who were kind of all over the map. I spent the last, probably 2 years running an O chain on my Fuel EX. I like the feel of it. There's other people who want a little bit of that that holding feel in the corner from not having it. As for speccing it, it's probably a Dave call.
Yeah, I think it's like Dylan's been
Expensive
saying.
spec.
It's understanding the compromise, right? Like there's people that like certain attributes of the O chain or the E13 hub that we've been riding quite a bit. And at some point, like it's up to the rider, and it wasn't as much of a demand as we would want to see to make it the primary spec, right? So as the P1 program evolves, I think we'll look to add more options like that.
This historically isn't a platform that has a ton of chain feedback either. Like there are some designs out there that really benefit from having something that settles that down a bit.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
it's a fairly middle of the road design as far as that goes. It
I think the
depends.
quiet. This bike is. Sorry to talk over it. Yeah, I mean, I'd say this bike is nice and quiet, which is helpful. Like the chain slap and the chain goes pretty close. At least on the alloy frame that I'm on, the chain is pretty close to the chain protector, so you don't get as much like flail. But like for me with the O chain, I do think there is the pedal kickback or whatever you want to call it. But I think the quietness is really why I personally like those kind of devices, just making the chain quieter. So yeah, when you have a bike that's already quiet, there's not as much need. But I think there is a difference in the ride experience. That's kind of why I asked, just because I've been happy with them, but it's interesting to see how they're adopted or how that little thing evolves.
Would you recommend, you going back to when you were talking about the compromises or some of the sizing, geometry sizing stuff between the different versions of these bikes. Are there any recommendations you'd make for riders who are planning to buy this bike and go to use the LX for sure, or use the MX for sure? Are there people where you'd be like, okay, definitely you should consider sizing up, or you should consider sizing down?
No, I think it's the changes there are subtle, and a lot of it is going from, say, the EX to the LX, where it is intended to get slacker. The bottom bracket gets a bit higher because you've got more travel to deal with. But the way we've looked at the size, I think it's still, if you're a large rider, we'd still recommend that. The one thing we have done is all the seat tubes have gotten quite a bit shorter on all the bikes across the board. So if you are the type of rider that's like, oh, I know I want this, I want that shorter bike for enduro, or I want the long bike and run the shortest stem possible, because of those lower seat tubes, that's much more possible now.
Right. So like if my ego needs me to size up, because I'm definitely tall, guys, don't worry, then I can still run a 200 mil post, and it's not going to be
the large is a 420 seat tube length, so
nice.
Uninterrupted basically. So
and that was also a goal of this layout, and some of the changes we made is we wanted to be able to bottom out a 200 post across the sizes.
That seems like it's one of the easiest, I'm in air quotes here, nothing's as easy as we think, but it seems like one of the easier changes to make, and yet some companies have really resisted that. What's the reason for not having such a short, like, why keep seat tubes long?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys
shorten them. They don't know.
You guys did the right thing, but I'm just.
It might just be the way different people look at it and look at sizing and look at seat tube insertion. But I think that it's probably the people that either haven't updated that, maybe either just can't get there fast enough, or they have other limitations in terms of packaging within the frame.
Right. There's other brands that their layout just won't allow for it. Right.
You mean like seat tube insertion, or like having a vertical-ish seat tube?
Yeah, or like with a shock or something. When you get that shock tunnel, it's hard to just keep going down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fair, but very annoying for Jesse May, and I think we should keep calling out. I hate it. It's so frustrating.
I like long dropper posts. I know we've done field tests in the past where people don't understand why we want longer dropper posts, but then we always suggest that they come ride on some steep trails with us and try the
once you've tasted it, you can't go back. That's for sure.
No, exactly. And there's a limit. Like, I don't need a 300 mil drop post. I think your knees being above your head starts feeling weird. But
right.
Scooters.
I mean, if they're adjustable, it's kind of. I have ridden really long ones, and I find that it makes your legs almost more tired if you're dropping so far. It can feel kind of strange, but that's at like a 250 or something for my height.
Yeah, I can run a 240 on the large now, and I've tested that a bit. It's a long way down, but when it's as steep, you're like, boy, it's nice.
Once it's there, it's nice. Exactly.
Saddle's gone.
Should we talk about? We haven't talked very much about the e-bike, but it's actually quite interesting to me that you guys are sharing so many parts, and that it's like 1.5 projects in lockstep here. I know we don't have the e-bike engineering folks here, but what was that process like?
I mean, I think in a lot of aspects, right, the use case, the customer demands are very similar, right? I mean, obviously your e-bike customer is a different customer But the terrain, the environment, like the capabilities, the handling of the bike, we want to be the same. And I think with our Fuel Plus platform, that's one of the things we're constantly trying to chase, is that very natural, familiar feeling to the fuel, right? That acoustic bike feel, as close as we can get.
What sorry, Kaz, this is a thing that I'm sure Kaz knows, but what motor system do you guys use?
So we're using the latest TQ HBR 60.
Yeah.
So some significant improvements in that system across the board. It uses the 580 battery that we put in the Slash Plus last year, but it has an all new HBR 60 motor, so it's almost twice as efficient. It's got better low cadence support, so it feels a lot more powerful across the power band. And then, the more efficient motor combined with that little bit larger battery gives you over double the range of our previous EXE. So it's a significant advancement in terms of that fuel platform.
And where does the main pivot end up going for that with that motor system? Is it pretty similar to the meat bike?
Exact
it's
same
identical.
spot.
Exactly. Yeah. So like that's Dylan said, we share all the parts.
Have you seen, I guess, we're getting to a place where it's almost tricky not tricky, but the consumer's in a spot where they could go into a bike shop, not sure what they want, think they want a regular non-motorized bike, potentially ride the motorized one and say, oh, this might be it. Like, is that something you see happening? I didn't think, we weren't there a few years ago, but now, and I've ridden the TQ HBR 50, it is that it changes the experience where you could almost consider, I could only just have an e-bike and be okay.
Totally.
Yeah, I know, totally.
Oh, man,
it has. And
Kaz,
I think
who are you?
Well, it's confusing for me. Like, I love, everyone knows I do love bikes without motors, and I'm never going to not have bike without a motor. But then you ride some of these ones, you're like, if someone said you have to have this for your only bike, like, all right, it feels pretty regular. Like, it feels normal.
Right.
And I think it's good for the consumer, but also maybe confusing for the people that were on the fence of like what.
I think it is confusing for those people, because it does, and that's what we're chasing with that platform, is the bike that feels so natural, so familiar, right? And I think with some of these larger systems out there, you kind of lose a lot of those characteristics. But that's something we've always been really focused on with the EXE, or now the Fuel Plus platform, is trying to maintain as much, if not all of that, and then the little bit of extra support that you don't hear. You don't hear it. You can feel it as much as you want with that new HBR 60 is really sweet.
Definitely I've said it before, but I kind of wish that e-bikes that the big full power ones never existed. And then if these ones existed, it would kind of change the landscape of maybe what people thought of. E-bikes would be almost easier to accept. You'd be like, I just need this for a little more assistance. It's cool. I'm still mountain biking, instead of being like, I've got my 1,000-watt behemoth. Like, we're going to go, which there's a place for those too. But I do think that it's a whole different thing.
Those to me are
I say that all the time.
Light electric vehicles, right? Like, those are really cool light electric vehicles. But these types of things feel a lot more at home in the sport.
Yeah, just the handling and the quietness,
sure.
and you're not scaring people. Yeah, it's interesting to see how it's evolved, and
it still feels like a mountain bike. It just feels like you're in super good shape.
Yeah, you have your best day of fitness ever.
Yeah.
Like, all right. Where the other ones are like your best day of fitness ever plus lots of drugs or whatever it took you. That doesn't, you can never put out 1,000 watts like those things can. But these ones, you're like, I could see, if I was,
You guys are getting so dangerously close to using competitor taglines here.
No, I'm not using anything. There's so many cheesy ones of it's you, but better or whatever it is. But it'd be interesting. I'd be curious. I'm sure you don't, your predictions, but as far as Fuel EX versus Fuel Plus, like sales wise, is one cannibalizing the other? You're kind of predicting more from the e-bike side, or how do you think that'll shake out? I don't know if you can speak to that, but
yeah, I mean it's definitely cannibalizing, right? Where we are seeing more adoption there, and as we said, that platform is more and more compelling, right? Especially as people get a taste of it, right? And I mean, you can only look at the guy on the side of the trail for so long and watch him ride by you until you're like, well, I'm going to try it. And once you try it, it's hard to look back, right? Like it's a natural evolution for humankind, I guess. It's just hard to ignore.
Yeah, like it's once you ride it, it feels like it gives you more options. Like say you're not as lucky as us, where you can bug out and go for a ride at lunch, but you're that person with an hour and a half in between work and needing to be home for dinner. Well, you can go ride more, or you can go to your local spot and get 3 descents instead of the 1 or 1.5 you could get. You can go for a longer ride some days, and if there's days you're thinking, well, I need a better workout, well, turn the motor assistance down, and you kind of still get that. So I think it opens up more options for you to use the bike in more ways.
And then plus if the battery fully dies, you'd have a bike that's heavy, but it's not as heavy as some of the other ones. It's I don't know the actual weights of them, but they tend to be in the 40 below 50 pounds. But you start trying to pedal a bike that's above 50 pounds, you're kind of sad. So, yeah, it's interesting.
I'm interested in sort of, you guys are product people. You think about where things are going. A lot of your job ultimately boils down to being right about where things are going to go in 3 to 5 years, and where demand is going to be. And so I would love to hear some predictions from you guys. Like what do you think we see? What are some trends and development directions you see the whole industry going? Not necessarily just Trek, but in general, things people will be exploring in, say, 5 years.
We just talked about it. E-bikes, I think, are going to continue to grow, and I think people are going to continue to chase getting more weight out of it as much as possible, like chasing that natural, traditional feel that we all kind of seek after in that development. So, it's something we focus a lot on it for this current platform, and I think we're still continuing to chase that. So, I think
you're not like, oh, we're done. Our job's done.
No, yeah, it can always. If there's one thing true in the bike industry, it can always be lighter, right? And everyone appreciates that weight. So,
Dylan, what's your prediction for the next 5 years? And let's be honest, the more e-bikes, that's a cheating answer.
It's true.
Stick your neck out here.
Yeah. I think you'll see more adaptability on e-bikes. I think we're going to see, yes, weight start to come down. Battery technology has to take a big jump for that to really make a big difference.
Is that the bottleneck right now in terms of e-bike weight in your mind?
Yeah, I think so. It's if we could get the reason not to run something like an 800 watt hour battery is that's a big battery in the bike, and it puts a lot of weight up high. You can feel that riding. The bike feels very different. I think that will come down at some point. There'll be a big technology jump that will be not driven by the bike industry, probably automotive. And I think you're seeing a little bit of it now. Like you're seeing some people with the new HPR 60 bikes out there. They're running the what's it, a 290 battery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that steps you down on the power that the motor can put out. So people are kind of playing this game like, well, I want just a little bit of extra oomph, but I want the bike to be way sub 40 pounds. Or it's, I'm willing to take the extra weight. I want the power. So I think you'll see the first thing you'll see power start going up on bikes in this low 40 pound range. But I think you'll see choice there of, do I want the big power and the big battery, or do I want the less power, smaller battery?
And what about on non-e-bikes? What do you think people are exploring over the next 5 years there? Like, do you think we've topped out on wacky geometry changes, or do you think we have another leap forward in geometry, or?
There'll be something coming there that I'm sure people have.
So well, I guess
there might not be a wacky geometry thing, but there'll be. We'll start chasing another.
Let me ask this then: is there a MMX version of Fuel EX with a different front wheel?
Probably.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that'll be. I think you'll see that over the next 5 years. That will grow. But I think that's gonna, as soon as it bleeds into pedal bikes, it's gonna bleed into e-bikes as well. So
I mean, again, for people listening or not seeing the smiles and laughs here, we're talking about 32-inch front wheels, and their ability to adapt. And maybe it's just for larges and extra larges or whatever, but I certainly think that that's a safe prediction. And clearly, Trek was one of the first. Travis Brown, we've had on a podcast a long time ago, is a pioneer at Trek who tested a lot of different big wheel size stuff over the years, and he was big on the 36s to start. And then I think 3 years ago we chatted with him on some interview, and maybe 4 years ago, and he was saying 32 is what he thinks will end up happening. And now we're seeing prototypes, we're hearing that things are in development from a few companies, and it doesn't surprise me that Trek is looking to adaptability on a platform like this.
I wonder how that 32-inch wheel will work with upside down forks. Get some extra clearance. I wonder if any of those will clear it.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see how those evolve too. Like they've still got some of the limitations we've had, but there's certainly ways around some of those limitations. And as you add power to a bike, some of those weight goes away, or becomes lessened that weight impact.
Yeah.
Well, and with the current EX to MX, you do have to get your geo where you guys are happy with it.
Yep.
You're supposed to go up in fork travel. Maybe you might be able to get some of that axle to crown, keep it even, like if you're on an XL, by having just a larger wheel.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's that whole down tube clearance part that's still a little tricky.
Yeah,
is it? Because you guys, I mean, you have quite a decent amount of clearance, it looks like, in that in the photos, but
yeah, not on the fuel. I thought you were talking about incorporating a 32-inch wheel in general. Like that obviously there's a lot more in the composition there, but
yeah, and toe overlap and all that stuff. We're back to the
well, I
days.
mean, I only think that it's for extra large and double extra large on this type of a bike, anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be not.
We all said that 20 years ago about 29, right?
We've been here before.
But I think we have hit the limit. Kaz, you are what, 5'11", and you like 29 on XC and trail bikes, but you find it a limitation on bigger bikes.
Yeah, but for the rear wheel.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, yeah. So you could just run a 32 front and a 27.5 rear.
24 rear. Don't be a coward.
24. Just go all the way.
Penny farthing.
Penny farthing. I'm super curious where it goes. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to see where it goes. Obviously we have ideas, but it's market and trends will help shape that as well.
Yeah, part of me is also it's just kind of like tossing matches onto pile of gasoline soaked rags whenever you change something like that. So it's kind of fun to watch. People like to get up in arms, and at the end of the day, it's all just bikes.
Are gonna light up.
Yeah, exactly. We're just riding bikes, and you guys are making cool things and experimenting and seeing what works. So I think that's fun. And some people forget and get real mad. So I kind of like that part of it though too.
Yeah,
Kaz is a troll.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we dove into most of the things. Is there anything we didn't touch on about the Fuel EX? Any secret menu items that you think is overlooked? Something you think, people should know that you could do this and this to create this magic bike we didn't talk about?
I think, Brian, you just touched on one of the MX. The way we're selling it when you start configuring the bike is 150, 160. But the way that the links in the lower shock mounts correct for geometry, that 160 is really about really making that bike a remedy. Mm-hmm. You want to run a 150 to keep it at 150 for BB height, head tube angle reasons, anything else. You don't have to run the 60 fork. That's one of those off menu items of like, oh well, I want to say you wanted a 145 150 bike. Well, you could reduce your shock stroke to 57.5. That'll push you down closer to 145 on the MX links. Put a 150 fork on, and you've basically
just keep the 150 fork on it. Yeah,
keep the 150 fork. Yeah. The other one that we do get a lot is people go, "Well, I really want the LX, but I like the mixed wheel." That's
the CAS special.
The CAS special, yeah. So really, for the MX, what you'd want to do there is you run the 65 stroke shock with the MX links, because that's going to correct your geometry with the small wheel. And put a 170 fork on it, and there's a long travel MX version.
And that'll be pretty damn light for, like, if you're trying to build a lighter enduro bike, like all day type of smashing machine. That's an interesting bike.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people that pick that as a fun vehicle, fun bike.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. And mine's not particularly light because I have the alloy frame with the burly parts on it, but it's fun. And obviously we're in the future, so we had steep seat angles and tall stack and things, so you can pedal it. It feels so much better. I feel like it'd be interesting to do a comparison of a bike from 7 years ago or something, similar characteristics, but trying to pedal the same weight bike and decide which feels harder to pedal, because it is a lot easier to pedal heavier bikes these days. I don't know if it's like a chicken and the egg thing, but I don't cringe as much. Like with this bike, it's fairly heavy. Like I said, the way it's built, but it can go for long rides and it feels fine. It's cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the way geometries have evolved, the way we're over the pedals, that position on the bike. You're in a much more efficient position to pedal a bike like that.
Yeah, you're not all back and just bobbing through all the travel and just trying to make your way up the hill. You can actually weight the front wheel. It's pretty nice, turns out. Nice work on making 3. Well, I think the number of bikes you've actually created, I think you can kind of do 2 for each configuration. So maybe you've made 12 bikes, I think. Because you can do mixer 29 for each of the 3. So 3 times. I think you made 12 bikes. So good job making 12 bikes.
Well, then we're up to what the headset adjustments and the link adjustments. What did he say it was, Dylan? It's like 65 or something.
Oh, I calculated it the other day. It was.
There's someone with a spreadsheet that's so excited right now.
If you put every geometry configuration in there, another secret menu item is you could actually mix and match the 29 shock mounts with MX to get a slightly lower BB, or the opposite way. Put the MX shock mounts in with either of the two 29er links, just then use that as a slight BB head angle thing. So you've got these little things that you can mix and match there. I think something we did do is there's certain ones we'd say, I don't recommend that. I don't recommend running the 29er links and just putting on an MX rear wheel. Your bottom bracket's going to get really low. But maybe all you do is ride flow trails. Maybe that works for you for some reason. The one thing we did do in working through this and took a lot of time to work out was there's nothing that is, if you put this in that part, your bike will blow up.
Right.
Everything does safely work. So you really can't, as we were talking earlier, you can't screw it up too much. There's certain things where that might really make your bottom bracket too low, or you run an MX setup with 29er wheels, and it's going to be a pretty high BB, but maybe you pedal through rock gardens all day long and that works for you. You could do it.
You don't switch a link and then all of a sudden your rear wheel's hitting your seat tube or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, the Tinkerer's Dream exists. And yeah, people should, if you've made it this far and you haven't read the articles and reviews and all the other content about that, go Pinkbike, check that out. Thanks for joining us, Dylan, Dave. This is great. It's always good to get a little bit of insight to how you created the newest Fuel EX. Excited to keep spending time on it. Nice work.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you guys again.